Hey everyone, we're in Proverbs chapter 19. Today we're looking at verse 3. When a man's folly brings his way to ruin, his heart rages against the Lord. Here's another observation from wise King Solomon that I, unfortunately, have been able to observe myself, and maybe you have too. When a man's folly brings his way to ruin, that is, when something bad happens to somebody because of something they did, because of a sin that they committed, or a just rejection of sound wisdom, he says his heart rages against the Lord. This is somebody who refuses to take responsibility for their actions, but instead blames God. I've met lots of people like this, unfortunately, who live a life that is completely detached from God. They don't want anything to do with God. They don't listen to the Bible. They've got their own theories, their own ideas. Something terrible happens to them because of that sin, and they want to blame God. God, where were you when all this was going on? And the answer to that question is, God was talking to you. God was telling you what was right. You had the whole scriptures available, the whole testimony, witness of the church, and all the wise people in your life telling you what to do. I've seen this, unfortunately, often connected with issues related to sexual morality. For example, when a child is born out of wedlock. Somebody who's been fornicating and living a life of free sex and not intending to ever commit to anything, and now a child comes into the mix, which is what tends to happen when you engage in that kind of activity. But then people will blame God. Why would God do this to me? Why would God bring this? I never wanted to be a single mother. I never was ready to be a father, but God brought this on me. No, he didn't. It was your folly that brought that upon you. Or when somebody builds an unstable business on a bedrock of corruption. Their foundation is corruption. They're lying, they're stealing, they're manipulating, they're pushing people down. And then the chickens come home to roost and it all falls apart. And they blame God for tearing it all down around them. Or when two people are in a marriage and they don't do anything the word says. The wife is not submitting to her husband. The husband is not loving his wife. They're not taking care of each other morally, spiritually, physically, sexually. They're not doing any of that. Then the marriage breaks apart and they want to say, why would God do this to us? Or you know what you can do? Here's another way. It's not even that your heart rages against the Lord. It's that you want to say something like, well, God must just have a plan for this. Look, God's always got a plan, but his plan was for you to do the right thing. He might have a plan to lead you through or out of something that you did, but don't blame God for your mess. You shouldn't be doing this. Your heart shouldn't be raging against the Lord because of your folly and your foolishness. You've got to be able to take responsibility for the wrong things that you've done. And you can say this to atheists too. Atheists who don't believe in God, yet they want to point at all the things around the world and throw it in the church's face and say, see, where's your God? To which, why do you care? Because there's a thing in your heart that says, hey, this thing shouldn't be this way, and that God should step in. And people will say things like, well, there's God, why hasn't he stepped in? And of course he has, in the person of his son, Jesus Christ. God might be stepping into your life right now by you hearing me say this to you. You need to walk in the wisdom and the righteousness that God has taught us to live by. You feel like it's so binding upon you and there's no freedom, there's no liberty in your life when you do it God's way, but then the consequences come and you want to blame God? No. The freedom comes walking righteously and living the way that God has taught us to live. You might not get to do everything you want, but you're going to avoid these catastrophes that come as a result of your own folly. So think on that. Don't blame God for things you've done. Run to him in repentance and ask for his forgiveness, and he will lead you out of it by the grace found in his son, Jesus Christ. God bless you all. Good lesson for today. I hope you take it to heart.